When the Drow were cursed and driven from the surface world, most of them descended into the Underdark. They built cities in the dark, pledged to Lolth, and became the creatures the Forgotten Realms has feared ever since. But during that same great dispersal, one group of Drow chose a different path. They vanished north into the frozen edge of the world, and the histories of Faerun forgot them entirely. The Aevendrow did not follow Lolth. These starlight elves were never indoctrinated by the Spider Queen's cruelty and ambition. They built a flourishing culture over thousands of years in harmony and secrecy. This hidden civilization was first revealed in R.A. Salvatore's Starlight Enclave, the opening novel of the Way of the Drow trilogy. Today I want to explore what we know about this remarkable Drow culture, their glacier city of Callidae, and what their existence means for the wider world of the Forgotten Realms. To understand the Aevendrow, we have to go back to the beginning, to what most Faerunian histories call the Descent. The Aevendrow call this event the Grand Dispersion. This was the fracturing of the Dark Elven people, the moment when the Drow fled their elven cousins and scattered across the world, each clan seeking security on their own terms. Most of those clans went underground, but settling deep in the earth meant settling close to the barrier between the material plane and the lower planes, and proximity to that boundary carried a great cost. Corruption seeped in over generations. The Aevendrow have a word for it, vertuperd, doomed to corruption. That is what happened to the Drow of the Underdark, and the Aevendrow have known it for thousands of years. Rather than descending underground, this clan of Drow traveled north to the glacial wilderness at the top of the world. The journey removed them from the Faerun entirely, the magical radiation of the Underdark that is the source of the innate magical abilities that Drow carry in their blood. The Aevendrow do not carry these powers. Their full name in their own language is Avensushin Indadrow, the Starlight Drow, the Aevendrow. And for thousands of years, the rest of the world had no idea they even existed. Callidae is built inside a glacier. The Aevendrow call their glacier Callidae, and their own legends name it as something sacred. According to those histories, Callidae was one of the Vati, the Wind Dukes of Aqua, godlike celestial beings who opposed chaos in the cosmos. The Aevendrow legend holds that Callidae lay down in the madness of the Slod Lord Yegorl and called upon the cold north winds to protect him in armor of ice. The great glacier that arose from his body stretches across the frozen north, with Callidae carved into one end and the fortress of the frost giants and the Slotty at the other. If these stories are true, the Aevendrow live inside the remains of a fallen god. What makes Callidae possible at all is the river Callidae, a system of hot springs that flows beneath the ice, warming the city from below and creating a livable environment inside the glacier canyons. Deep beneath those canyons lie vast chambers filled with enormous crystals that generate tremendous heat, and the Aevendrow believe those chambers are what allow the hot springs to flow. Without the river, without the heat, the city could not survive. The city is organized into 5 boroughs, each occupying its own canyon carved into the glacier. Skelebel is the largest and most populous borough, split nearly down its center by a great prow of rock. It is the most culturally mixed, home to the widest variety of peoples, and the entry point for most visitors. The vineyards of Skelebel produce the famous Skelebeli ice wine, and its people take fierce pride in being the best fighters in the city. Mona Chess is the oldest borough and was originally the whole of Callidae. The other boroughs grew outward from it over generations as the population expanded. It is home to the Siglig, the city's seat of government and its great library. The structures here rise nearly halfway up the towering glacial walls, with their minarets and spires, all of them built from magical blue and white ice, their facades dancing in waves of reflected light. Arden is the garden borough. The name itself means garden. Musk oxen are herded here, crops are cultivated in managed greenhouses, and proportionally more orcs and dwarves live in Arden than anywhere else in the city, drawn by their affinity for working with animals and the land. Arden was the last of the 5 boroughs to be settled, and historically the hardest one. The early Aevendrow fought Rimmerhauses in that canyon for generations before it was claimed. Bashet is the narrow wooded borough, the coldest and darkest of the 5, with little sky above. A small forest of tall larch provides timber for the whole city. The narrow channel catches and tightens the wind, and most of the curate dwarf mines for white ice and lighter blue ice are located here. Caddisola was the 5th borough, and for a long time it was lost. Wooded with tunnels running deep into the glacier, it was consumed slowly by the glacier's advance over many decades. The Aevendrow fought in Caddisola for years before the ice claimed it entirely. The loss of Caddisola remains one of the defining tragedies of Callidaean memory. Beyond the burrows lies Cascate Cavern, a separate cave system that is not a burrow. A small number of curate dwarves and Arctos Oryx live there as full citizens of Callidae, connected to the city but outside its main canyons. The total population of Callidae across all boroughs is roughly 40,000 Aevendrow, approximately twice the size of Menzoberranzan, alongside thousands more curate, Arctos Oryx, Eludian humans, and a small number of Eladrin who have found their way here generations ago and chose to stay. There are no slaves in Callidae. The city's weapons and many of its structures are built from the glacier's own ice. White ice, pressed by the weight of the glacier walls for centuries, is treated by the Aevendrow to be as hard as metal without becoming brittle or susceptible to melting. Blue ice, the rarer and more deeply compressed variety, mined from beneath the sea ice pack, holds more powerful enchantments and is prized above all other materials. The finest weapons in the city are blue ice blades. And the man who understands those crystal chambers better than anyone else in Callidae is Alifero, the city's young resident wizard and scholar. He is among the most powerful spellcasters in Callidae and prefers to spend his days in the deep libraries of the Siglig rather than anywhere near the dangerous creatures he has spent years studying. Awkward in a harness and visibly uncomfortable whenever his theoretical knowledge places him on the front lines of an actual encounter, he is also quietly indispensable. His expertise on the Rimmerhauses consuming the crystal chambers beneath the city proves central to understanding the existential threat those creatures pose to Callidae's survival. Alifero has become the bridge between Callidae and the next generation of the Do'Urden family, serving as personal guide and mentor to Breezy during her visit to the city and teaching her the elven school of blade singing. At the heart of Mona Chess stands the Siglig. It is the seat of government and the great library of the Aevendrow, carved directly into the glacial wall at the far end of a wide boulevard. 6 columns, thick as frost giants, frame its entrance, each one wrapped in rolling globes of magical light, cycling through every color in sequence, never quite forming a rainbow. The reliefs carved into the facing above show vignettes of Callidaean culture, battles with giants on one panel, love and dance on the next. Inside, the walls hold tapestries, paintings, and alcoves filled with sculptures of Aevendrow, curate, orcs, and Eludians gathered together in silent celebration. The Siglig holds the city's deepest libraries, where the most important records of Callidae are sealed away. If a visitor leaves and never returns, their story is locked in those deep libraries forever. The assembly that meets inside the Siglig is called the Temporal Convocation. Representatives wear colored sashes matching their borough's Kazkalchi colors, and their numbers are proportional to their borough's population. Even some non-Aevendrow people sit among them, reflecting how the Aevendrow actually think about governance. The city belongs to all its peoples equally, and the convocation reflects that. The convocation is presided over by the Mona, an elected position. The current Mona is Valrissa Jambolay. She commands the assembly, controls who speaks, and carries final authority on the city's most critical decisions. She governs with precision rather than sentiment, and Callidae's survival is the only consideration that matters when she takes the floor. Mona Valrissa is a savvy politician and a decent woman balancing the responsibilities of office with the responsibilities of her heart. The most defining law of Callidae is secrecy. The key to Callidae is the memory of Callidae. No outsider may leave with knowledge of its location. The Aevendrow give visitors a choice between staying as full citizens or departing, but departure always carries a cost. For those who choose to leave, the Aevendrow perform a ritual excising the subject's most recent memories and reshaping them into indistinct dreams with no anchor anyone could act upon. For those who have earned absolute trust, there is a second path, the Gaesh Diviet. The ritual of Diviet does not erase memory. Instead, it binds the recipient against betrayal with their life. Should the subject begin to betray Callidae in any way, whether under torture, under magical compulsion, or through deception, the Gaesh takes them from the world before the betrayal can be spoken. The temporal convocation considers it no small matter and performs it rarely. Together, these two rituals represent what Callidae's secrecy demands. The Aevendrow have survived for thousands of years because they have never treated this law as negotiable. Life in Callidae is shaped by the joy of community and the demand of survival, and the Aevendrow have found a way to honor both at once. The city is a place of genuine beauty. Every wall and avenue has been carved with care, magical lights line the facades in waves of color, and the streets carry music and laughter. The Aevendrow take deep pleasure in art, in craft, in celebration, and they carry a warmth that surprises every outsider who encounters it. At the center of everything is Callidae. The Battle of Twilight Autumn is played once a year on Quistacunze, the one true sunset, the single day each year when full darkness finally falls over Callidae after 6 months of perpetual light. 4 teams, one from each borough, take the field in the Grand Colosseum. Beyond Corso of Skelebel, the White Bears in blue and white, Guard Real of Mona Chess in regal purple, Boscali of Bichette, the Lumberjacks in woodland green, and Tivatris of Arden in yellow, red, and green. Each army fields 25 soldiers. The object is to drive the Ga, which is what they call the ball, into the opposing team's goal for points. Opponents stop you the only way Callidae allows, by hurting you badly enough to take you off the rink, and there are no replacements. Callidae is more than a sport. The game reminds every Callidaean that they live on the edge of disaster and must remain ever vigilant. Quistacunze, the celebration of that one true sunset, puts the whole event into its proper frame. The pride, the rivalry, the scars of the battle belong to the teams and their boroughs. The deeper purpose belongs to everyone. It is the full city acknowledging together their place in the world. It is the realization of how precarious their home is, and the choice to face that truth with courage and joy rather than fear. When the Alabaleri rises above the Colosseum, the Aevendrow word for the merry dancers, and 50,000 voices go silent as one, the whole of Callidae breathes together, choosing each other for another year. The warriors who compete in Callidae carry their scars deliberately. When magic returns after Twilight Autumn, they could heal every mark from the battle, but they choose not to. The scars are evidence of what they gave to their borough and to their city. They wear them with pride. Faith in Callidae is a personal matter, and the city has kept it that way by design. The temporal convocation sanctions multiple religions within the city. Elestrayi the Dark Maiden holds a congregation in Skelebel. Aril the Frost Maiden counts among her worshippers Ilna, one of Callidae's most prominent priests. Other faiths exist throughout the boroughs. The city holds no state religion, and no divine hierarchy carries authority over civic life. The Temple of Elestrayi in Skelebel reflects the city's spirit, a circular gazebo, more sculpture than structure, set open against the canyon wall, its floor a mosaic of tiny stones forming an image of the Dark Maiden. The woman who built that congregation and commanded the city's inquisitors was Holy Galathe. paladin of Elestrae, and one of the most remarkable figures in Callidae's recent history. As a paladin, she could sense truth and intent beyond spoken words, making her both an exceptional judge of character and the cornerstone of Callidae's security. She fashioned her holy sword, Blucidere, herself from blue ice, one of the finest weapons in the city. She grew up in Skelebel, training with childhood friends for a spot on Bian Corso, the dream of every burrow warrior. Elestrae reached her before she could claim that place, and the calling pulled her in a direction that would eventually take her beyond Callidae entirely. In battle, she was fearless. The price of that fearlessness came during the war in Menzoberranzan, where she gave her life to remove a Goristro demon from the field. With her final act, she pressed Blucidere into Zaknafein Do'Urden's hands. The faith she carried lives on in Callidae still. Then there is Kadij. The glacier itself is sacred ground. Their histories say it grew from the body of a wind duke of Aqua who gave himself to the ice to oppose the chaos of Yagorl. The storms, the winds, the glacier's slow advance and retreat, all of it is Kadij. To live inside the glacier is to live inside a divine act. That truth sits beneath every other belief held in Callidae, unspoken and constant. For thousands of years, Callidae asked nothing of the world beyond the glacier and expected nothing in return. Then the outside world found them. The arrival of Jarlaxle, Catti-brie, Zaknafein, and Artemis Entrere in Callidae marked the first time the Aevendrow had engaged directly with the peoples of Faerun in living memory. The temporal convocation processed their presence carefully, heard their stories, weighed the risks, and made a decision that would set the city on a new course. Gratitude toward their ancestors exists alongside a growing awareness that the world outside the glacier is changing in ways that press against Callidae's borders. The Slotty and frost giants threatening the far end of the Kadij Glacier, the Rimmerhaz hordes consuming the crystal chambers beneath the city, the civil war in Menzoberranzan, which left thousands of Uda Drow without a home. These are forces the Aevendrow cannot ignore by choosing to remain hidden, because some of them are already inside the glacier. Jarlaxle's proposal for a gradual immigration of Menzoberranzan refugees into Callidae was not rejected. By 1509 DR, up to 100 Uda Drow refugees have been allowed into Callidae, settled in the reclaimed borough of Catti-sola, fully vetted before entry, and watched carefully as trust is built over time. For Drizzt Do'Urden, Callidae answered the oldest question of his life. In his journal, he writes, "We Drow are not flawed. We are not lesser. We are not malignant by any measure of nature. The Faerzris corrupted those who descended underground. The Aevendrow who never came near that corruption built a flourishing civilization of 40,000 people in harmony with every culture that found its way to them. Callidae is the proof." Perhaps nothing captures what Callidae truly is better than the story of Zaknafein Do'Urden. He was carried into the city on a litter, gravely ill, unable to fight or speak for himself. And on the night of Quistacanze, with 40,000 Aevendrow filling the Grand Colosseum, Azadana of Bian Corse went to war wearing a strip of his shirt tied around her waist. When she made the throw that won the match, she walked to the wall beneath the visitors and started chanting his name. And then all of Callidae joined. 50,000 voices, every people the city had ever welcomed, chanting the name of a man most of them had never met. Zaknafein was cured of the chaos phage. And he never left the city. He was declared a Callidaean with the blessing of the temporal convocation. He now fights for the Bian Corso White Bears. He has won the Kazkalchi Championship twice. He carries the holy sword of Elestrae and describes himself, after everything, as a man at peace. When he walks onto the Grand Colosseum under the Alla Baleri, the whole city still chants his name, Pierte Mie Zaknafein. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I went through all the books from the Way of the Drow trilogy and The Finest Edge of Twilight to gather every piece of lore and information I could in hopes of creating a complete look at the Aevendrow and Callidae. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you want more videos like this one, consider supporting the channel by becoming a patron. I make 2 bonus podcasts a month and have a growing library of D&D 5e stat blocks of characters from the Legend of Drizzt. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week for more lore from the Forgotten Realms and the Legend of Drizzt.